Hi, Team Canada. It's Julia and Nicole, and we're your co-leads for Betty's Family Canada. General Mills is LGBTQ plus employee resource group. Last year was the first year that we celebrated Pride at General Mills Canada, and we're here to kick 2021 for the second Pride ever at General Mills Canada. For anyone who was here last year, this may seem familiar, Nicole and I speaking to you via video form, but we're here to do it again where we talk about 3 different topics throughout the month. The first topic that we'll be discussing is representation of LGBTQ plus people within the community.
To start off our educational videos, we want to discuss the importance of strong LGBTQ plus representation. LGBTQ plus people have been increasingly represented in the media over the past 2 decades. Having role models is an important part of adolescent development. It's important for youth to see people that look like them in society so that they feel represented, inspired, and motivated to be their true and authentic selves.
Thankfully, LGBTQ plus young people are growing up in a world where their role models aren't necessarily the first openly gay rugby player or the first transgender person on TV. From comedians to actresses to politicians and musicians, visible role models of LGBTQ plus people are on the rise, and that can only be a good thing.
Poor representation of the LGBTQ plus community, especially in the media, can lead to more discrimination and hate crimes. The 2020 Netflix documentary Disclosure shows audiences that decade-old stereotypes, memes, and figures in the media both form and reflect our understanding of LGBTQ plus issues. They have shaped the cultural narrative about LGBTQ plus people and inform everything from dating and domestic violence to school policy and national legislation.
This documentary, which focuses a lot on transgender and gender non-binary people within the community, highlights that 80% of the population claim they have never met a transgender person. All they know is what they're seeing in the media, which is predominantly problematic and have rarely included participation by actual transgender people. A common example is actors vomiting by the sight of a transgender person. This was seen in movies such as The Crying Game, Naked Gun, Hangover 2, Family Guy, Ace Ventura, and more. A possibly even worse example is Bugs Bunny, which is a children's cartoon, was one of the first depictions of what's called the LGBTQ plus panic defense. This is where people say it's okay when they find out someone is LGBTQ plus to panic and cause them physical bodily harm. And this was depicted in Bugs Bunny.
Since then, statistics from GLAAD have brought some welcome news for the LGBTQ plus community. In their annual Where We Are on TV 2020 to 2021 report, they found that out of 773 TV characters, 70 from the LGBTQ plus community were represented. Of the 773 series regulars counted on broadcast television, 46% of characters are people of color. The racial diversity of LGBTQ plus characters on all platforms has increased.
And with this increase of representation, the media has a big role to play with what they say on TV. This includes things such as gender inclusive language and LGBTQ plus inclusive language as a whole. Just as we say across individuals and communities, it's important to use proper language. It's increasingly important that the media does so as well, because this impacts society as a whole. And there are facts to back up this increase of representation. In terms of advertising, research shows that 60% of the general population believe that it's important to accurately portray people of all gender identities and sexual orientations.
Even though the majority of the population believe accurate representation is extremely important, only 1 in 5 people feel represented in advertising and feel that brands don't really speak to that. Findings from a study by GLAD and P&G revealed that non-LGBTQ plus consumers look favorably on companies that include LGBTQ plus people in their advertising. The study also finds that exposure to LGBTQ plus people in the media increases comfortability with LGBTQ plus people in their daily lives.
Personally, a lot of people who I saw growing up were queer heroes or queeros for myself. And when I saw them in everyday life, it truly impacted myself in a positive way. To think about the actual statistics of LGBTQ plus people in the community, Canada currently estimates that it's anywhere between 5 to 14% of people who identify as LGBTQ plus. This is anywhere from 2 to 5 million people. Now, when you think about it, 5 to 14% is quite a large gap and really highlights the difficulties in representation, given that being LGBTQ plus is what we call a non-visible marginalized group. What this means is that because you cannot look at someone and tell that they are LGBTQ plus, people can choose to be visible or not.
One of the reasons for such low representation is that over half of LGBTQ plus employees are not out at work. There is a reason why people aren't coming out at work for fear of the response. In Canada, 40% of LGBTQ plus employees experience discrimination at work, which doubles to 80% for transgender and non-binary workers. Even if people wanted to be out at work, 21% of LGBTQ plus people in Canada have been fired or denied employment because they were LGBTQ plus. Not having representation in the workplace is highest when there is a clear lack of LGBTQ plus representation among executive level managers in the corporate industry. 0.6% of Fortune 500 CEOs are LGBTQ plus, which is equivalent to 3 people.
Now that we've looked at the importance of LGBTQ plus representation, both in the media as well as the workplace, we can talk about how this directly impacts General Mills, a company that houses employees as well as multi-million dollar brands. Representation in the workplace is important for other LGBTQ plus people to have role models, but also to increase diversity of thought within businesses. We can both allow for representation by ensuring you are committing visible acts of allyship so that any person feeling unsafe about coming out knows they have a safe space. As well, in our recruiting efforts, we can ensure to attract top talent of intersectional communities.
We know that representation among brands has an enormous reach and power in shaping societal views. Our own General Mills brands have exhibited LGBTQ plus representation, such as the 2014 Cheerios commercial featuring a same-sex couple, ultimately helped General Mills in the US lobby for same-sex marriage to be legalized, thus impacting the lives of our consumers.
The media we consume has a large influence on our thoughts. The next time you're watching shows, reading books, or seeing ads, look for representation of yourself and think how good that feels. That is the power of representation.
We want to leave you today with a quote by Harvey Milk that we feel accurately summarizes the power of representation within the LGBTQ plus community. The quote goes as follows: "If you help elect more gay people, that gives a green light to all who feel disenfranchised, a green light to move forward."